Today we're going to see how powerful restricted vintage cards are. Are they overrated or are they underrated? Let's take a look at it. We're starting off with Ancestral Recall. All right, I'll admit this one is just straight up easily busted. You know, I always ask people, can we bring even Ancestral Recall into Commander? Because, you know, there's a lot of, like, broken stuff. Does one player drawing 3, is that too much? I mean, they got Treasure Cruise and Dig Through Time over there. But apparently, like, they don't even like that in Commander. And you know what? I have to admit, even for Vintage, this is a little too pushed. You know, a lot of games are completely surrounded by Ancestral Recall. Disclaimer, I've actually played a little Vintage, all right? I've played more Vintage in my life than, say, pre-modern or Pauper for that matter. There, like, for example, I don't even think not Gitaxian Probe, Mental Misstep is the most greatest card in Vintage, except that it does interact with specifically the cantrip, specifically something like Ancestral Recall. So because this card is so overwhelmingly, well, I mean, if you had 4 copies in your deck, you could just chain Ancestral Recall into Ancestral Recall into Ancestral Recall. There is enough fast mana to perhaps do that. Imagine Snapcaster Ancestral Recall. Not that Snapcaster Mage is the most popular card over there, but I can definitely see a world where Magic the Gathering turns more into, like, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh! In a 60-card format. If you had access to 4 Ancestral Recall, it would be completely unhinged. So for that matter, yes, I do believe that this card is too powerful, even for Vintage, hence why it's restricted. Okay, next up, we're going to look at Balance, which is always a funny card to talk about because it's not really that balanced, now is it? It's one of the least balanced cards for a card called Balance. Whichever player has more lands in play must discard enough lands of their choice to equalize the number of lands both players have in play. Cards in hand and creatures in play must be equalized the same way. We love the ancient scripture, don't we? Creatures lost in this manner may not be regenerated. No, because they get sacrificed. They're sacrificed and then they are absolutely gone. So the deal with Balance is if you go first, you could just maybe you could really bury your opponent. You go like Black Lotus, another Mox, play card, just basically empty your hand, finish it off with Balance, and then all of a sudden your opponent, which starts with 7 cards, realizes, oh, I'm about to lose basically all of them. So it's almost like you know, make target opponent discard 5 or maybe all their cards. It's possible. There's a lot of decks in Vintage. They'll just spew their entire hand out on turn 1 and be like, all right, pass the turn. Good luck next turn. Balance sounds annoying even in 1 versus 1. It is. That's why it's banned in Legacy and it's restricted in Vintage. So, like, yeah, it's just as dangerous in this format as other formats. Now, so for the only reason they could have a clause on Balance, they should say, like, Balance cannot be played on the first turn of the game, which would sound weird, because that's not really how I think they designed this card. I think they designed this card based on the fact that you, oh no, hold on. Whichever player has more lands must discard. No, this is not the most broken way to play this. I'm being an idiot. If I, like, play out my entire hand and there's, like, only 1 creature, hold on, but each player chooses a number of lands. Players do the same thing with creatures. Oh, yeah, okay. So if you have a bunch of artifacts in play, like you do in Legacy, artifacts, enchantments, those are going to be protected, whereas everything else gets sacrificed and must be, or discarded. So the only thing that must be lost are the lands and the cards and the creatures. So if you even went second, your opponent played creatures, then they'll get smashed. I was like, for a second, I thought, because I never played with or against a Balance before, because it's always been banned. Or I guess in Vintage it is restricted. The problem with this card, there's not a lot of problems with this card. The deal with this card is if you were to try to play it with creatures, it would screw you if you try to play it on turn 1. No, you play around. You would just play around with the Balance. Okay, they balanced it with Restore Balance. It's true. So now it actually feels like a balance, Like where you get the point of the game where everyone has some stuff out and then you just shrink the board to make it more equal instead of spewing your hand. I'm sure there's other ways of breaking this card, especially if you don't play with creatures. You don't play with creatures. You don't play... Maybe you don't even play with many lands or any lands at all. So there's a lot of ways of... It's a very annoying 2-mana board wipe. Okay. Full disclaimer. I'm not the best person to explain balance. Balance. Okay, this is definitely garbage. I'm going down alphabetically, Jasper Rab. So if anyone wants to super chat, I'll skip. But until then, we're going down alphabetically. Black Lotus. Because that's the only way that I can keep track of these cards. If I start jumping around the list, I won't be able to know what we've done, what we haven't done yet. Okay, we have the 0 mana artifact. You know what? It's funny. I have played against Brian Cook in a completely unrestricted, unhinged version of Vintage, and it was actually playable. I'm not gonna lie. So the rule was we could do anything we wanted, no restrictions, and the games consistently like went to turn 8. It's actually way more balanced than it looks, as far as I'm concerned. So I think in theory you could probably play with so long as everyone gets to play with 4 of every single card. I think you could go 4 of Black Lotus, and it would probably be like okay. But for as long as Black Lotus is the only thing that is unrestricted, then it becomes broken. So for that reason, yeah, Black Lotus deserves to be restricted. Super powerful. I'm not gonna lie, if you want, and I have it on my main channel. What's like the most broken thing you can do with Ancestral Recall / Time Walk? Oh, with all of them? Oh, you gotta go check. I made it. Maybe I'll link the video. But I had a like potential best deck ever versus best deck ever video on my main channel to try to answer this question. Like, if you could go 4 Ancestral Recall, 4 Black Lotus, 4 everything, what does that deck look like? And it was like Doomsday versus Hulk Flash. And we're still not even clear what the best deck possibly is. But it's way more balanced than it looks, in my opinion. They should make a commander version of Black Lotus. Yeah. Like, maybe the mana could only be used on your commander. I'll tell you what. They should fix Jeweled Lotus from, like, 3 mana to 2 mana. Is that enough? I mean, it's still broken, that's for sure. Fishing Gaming, Nikachu. I just started playing MTG Arena. I got Mythic rank, and now I'm 88%. Congratulations. 88% in Mythic rank. Get it. The best I got was just Mythic, and then I quit. So you're doing better than me. The best deck is winning before your draw step. Yeah, it's actually not true. I mean, with every deck playing with Force Negation, Force of Will, it's harder than it looks. So Black Lotus is not nearly as broken as you would think it is. Next card on the list is Brainstorm. That's a funny one. So it is like basically Ancestral Recall. I mean, it's basically Ancestral Recall in Legacy, that's for sure. I want the original is actually really ugly. I do not like the original. Ugh. Ew! What's going on? Did they have any teeth left? I don't know. Maybe all the teeth are rotten. But anyway, 1 blue, instant. Draw 3 cards, take 2 cards from your hand, and put them on top of your library in any order. Purpose, you draw 3 cards. Those are good cards. Take 2 of your worst cards, put them back, then play like a fetch land, any shuffle effect, shuffle them away. Shuffle your problems away. That's how it works around in Magic the Gathering. It's funny how Brainstorm is really busted, but also kind of overrated. Yeah, I know. So, I think... Like, I don't know exactly the history of Brainstorm in Vintage. I imagine maybe it's weaved in and out of becoming restricted, or maybe probably there was obviously a time that you could play the full 4, and then they restricted it because cantrips are great. Who would have thought? Especially if they go 3 cards deep. But it's effectively like Diet Ancestral Recall, and for the most part, spiritually, it still does the same thing. Everyone has dead cards in their hand. You like, even if you don't have dead cards in your hand, you can draw a few cards off the top of your deck, and then, you know, those are still good cards. You know, the good cards to sandbag in your hand for the moment that you want to brainstorm. Especially for formats like Vintage, Legacy, like you don't need that much. I mean, you have other sources of mana in play. You can afford to sandbag those lands. Anyhow, I love the moments when Ponder is just infinitely times better. Well, in a deck that doesn't. No, Ponder is like also still wants fetch lands. There are more moments though. There are moments, especially if you need to protect your hand. The card you want is on top of your deck and not in your hand. Nikachu, what do you think about Ancestral and Brainstorm given the rise of Orcish Bowmasters? Bowmasters doesn't do squat. That's what I think. I think Bowmasters does nothing. It's very instant speed cantrips. They are really good versus Bowmasters. Oh, you have 2 mana up? Well, then I just won't play it. Oh, you play your Bowmasters? Well, in response, I have a Brainstorm. That's for sure. The F&M promo Brainstorm art is goated. I didn't even know there was one. It's not this, is it? Where's the F&M art? I didn't know there was one. Oh, there's too many of them now. Too many Brainstorms. Oh, I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah. It's like the regular one. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of the Mercadian Masks Brainstorm, and this is just like the foil version on top of that. So, Now, in terms of like how powerful this card is, I actually don't think this is that powerful. Brainstorm. It's a good card, don't get me wrong. But, I mean, it's still not definitely draw 3. It's just very, very good. Now, for Vintage, do they need to keep control over the cantrips? Absolutely. But actually, I do not consider Brainstorm to be above and beyond powerful. I would live in a world where it's completely unrestricted. Brainstorm would be good if it had Storm. Oh, God, come on. It's better than Ancestral Recall? Vintage, what is that? Ancestral mode? Okay, so the super situational, whether Brainstorm or Ponder does more, so interesting. In general, Brainstorm is the better card, because Ponder can only get you 1 fresh card, where Brainstorm could literally get you 3 fresh cards. At once. 3 cards at the same time. Sorry, Ricardo, we're going down in order of their existence. Okay, Brainstorm next. Chalice of the Void. Chalice of the Void, the XX artifact, enters the battlefield with X charge counters on it. Whenever a player casts a spell with converted mana cost equal to the number of charge counters on Chalice of the Void, you counter that spell. This card is a bit of a joke in this format. The reason it's the reason it's restricted is because it defeats the purpose of the format in the first place. You know how you commander players, you hate those cards that lock out your commander. You know, you can't play it. That says you can't play your commander, you can't play anything unless it came from your hand. Well, this is how Vintage players feel about their Moxen, their Black Lotus. You know, they spent a good $20,000 on that Moxen and Black Lotus. They want to play with them. So if you go first and you play Chalice of the Void on 0, I mean, that's just a big sad face to the Vintage players. Like, you aren't letting me play with my cards. You should not let me play. I want to play with my cards. Yeah, let me play my Mox and then kill yours. Effectively. Yeah, Black Lotus, Mox Sapphire, Mox Pearl. All right, Chalice on 0. Shouldn't be restricted in Vintage. Theoretically, no, but in the spirit of the format, yes. I mean, it is also akin to, like, how Upheaval is banned in Commander. Like, there are cards that just go against the purpose of the format. Therefore, Chalice of the Void is OP in this format. Completely OP. Very unfun. It's very unfun for the pay-to-win players, basically. You like to play pay-to-win? Well, I could pay $30 for this thing and counter half your deck. Counters is always unfun. When new players encounter a counter spell, they hate it. Then next week they are playing blue with counter spells. We know if you can't beat them, you join them. Although I think it is incredibly rare that you will find noob players in Vintage. Like, incredibly rare. I don't know how many times or I mean, like in paper, I guess. Online, for example, on Magic the Gathering Online, you can play Vintage for like basically nothing. The cards online are really, really cheap. And also, if you have a rental service, it's like no problem whatsoever. But like in general, you know, people, this is like a really seasoned player sort of format. Although I would say it's more accessible than ever because the format just lives online. Is still nowadays that vintage restricted cards are also banned by default in Legacy? Nope, no, that it's very, very different. Like Chalice of the Void, restricted in Vintage. Is it banned in Legacy? Absolutely not. So this card definitely does not deserve to be restricted. It's not powerful, I should say. It's not as powerful as it looks. Very power dependent. Now, what's funny about Chalice is they restricted it and they keep printing cards like Vexing Bauble that just replace because people used to play with 4 Chalice of the Voids in Vintage, and now you can play like 1 Chalice of the Void, 1 Vexing Bauble, 1 this, 1 that, and soon enough, like they'll just creep enough of these anti-artifact cards that like people will be able to still beat them anyway. It's incredibly rare to find anyone playing paper Vintage. You know, it's a community. It's like a community like anything else. It's like no one loves Vintage. Always showing up to Friday night Vintage, and so on. John says, "Oh, I got Brainstorm confused with Serum Visions in the promo." Oh, talking about that thing. Vexing Bauble also restricted. Yeah, we'll eventually get to that one. Maybe in part 2. Next up, Channel. I honestly have nothing to say about this card. I have never played with it, and for all I know, it is just as bad as it looks. You know, the first combo deck of all time, the Channel Fireball, where you pay 2 green, you pay 19 of your life, you pay a little few mana from the battlefield, you fireball someone to death. These days, that can like backfire. You know, honestly, that can backfire on you big time. Channel should be legal in Legacy? Maybe. Like, you know, we think about it. Like, just think about it. Between like Mind Break Trap, Force of Negation, Force of Will, you go for this turn 1 kill, you could die. Like, it could be GG for you because you have to pay the life anyway. It's like pay 19 life, fireball, and then I'll be like counterspell. Sorry, Force of Will. Then it's over. I mean, I guess you could back it up with like a bunch of Pact of Negations. So maybe it's still too rough. Turn 1 kill, and it's too easy of a turn 1 kill for the most part. Old Boy says, last time we played no ban list EDH, the player who played Channel lost on turn 1 from burn. Exactly. It can happen. No way, how many opening hand kills there would be? Well, I mean, with tutors, you can make it happen. Let Channel go? Someone free Channel! Unbanned Channel. What? I have no idea what the games look like, to be honest. Because it's such a high risk, it's a high risk, high reward type of card. We're going all in, and then if you succeed, you win. If you fail, you die. Doctarian says, I think recently when you could have as many cards as you wanted and could mulligan if had no lands, you could you could Channel Fireball and Black Lotus turn 1 kill 100% of the time. But yeah, well, back in the day, they had no free counter spells. There's no free way to interact with that combo. Oh, you won the die roll? Well, you won the game. Congratulations, you won the die roll. How about another? Would you like to play another game? It's basically how the mirror match worked back then. But these days, we have a lot of counter spells. But it's really hard for me to defend this card. Like, what can I say? It's literally banned everywhere. Historic, Brawl, Commander, Oathbreak. What is it doing in Timeless? Is anyone making it work in Timeless? Also makes me wonder, is anyone playing with Channel in Vintage? I don't think I came across a channel deck. Do we do Berserk? No, yeah, Berserk is not. I don't think Berserk is banned I don't think Berserk is restricted in Vintage. Force Negation, you lost the game, basically. I mean, unless they've got they could have their own Force Wills, their own Pact of Negation, so you got to beat all that stuff. I imagine there's a world where it's still really powerful on the play, and they try to kill you. But I don't know. Okay, we'll be on the safe side and say that this card should still be banned, should still be restricted because it is too powerful. Demonic Consultation. Demonic Consultation. Black, instant. Choose a card name. Exile the top 6 cards of your library. Then reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a card with the chosen name. Put that card into your hand and exile all other cards revealed this way. It is... So this card is basically a tutor for anything that you want, or you just exile your entire deck if necessary for Thassa's Oracle. And it still works the same way. You hate this combo in Commander? Well, it's just as dangerous in Vintage and Legacy and anywhere else. Hilarious that it's legal. Well, the beautiful thing about Commander is actually, well, I don't know about beautiful, a very interesting aspect of Commander are the tutors, whereas in like the competitive formats, you're playing tutors, that's consistency. That's bad. We don't want that consistency around here. Because things get really, games get really consistent in 60 card formats. If you get to play with like 4 of a card, 8 tutors that can all find that one thing, the games get repetitive really fast. At least in Commander, you got to work a little bit for it. I cannot imagine channeling Commander. We're just going in alphabetical order. We're going to do all... I'm not going to say we're going to do all of them in one show, but we will get through all of them eventually. Timeless is an MTG Arena format. Yeah, I know. Arena. The digital world. Where you can have... Do they have Black Lotus on Arena? I don't know. What even is Timeless? The vintage of MTG Arena. That's what it is. I should get in on that stuff. I would often only use 8 different cards in 60 card decks. Very consistent. That's, yeah, I mean, plus a few cantrips, and you'll definitely get everything that you need to get. All right, this card is a super tutor. Too powerful. Too powerful. Next up, we've got Demonic Tutor. This is a funny one. This is a funny one because it's 2 mana, it's sorcery. You may search your library for 1 card and put it into your hand. Any card. Commander players, how do you feel about this card? Is it too broken? I've been hearing from a lot of from Cube players that this is like the best tutor of all tutors. All the other tutors, they put it on top of your deck. You have to only get like one of this, one of that. You're restricted what you can get. Demonic Tutor, you can get anything. I don't even have to tell you what it is, all right? I just put it straight in my hand. You can guess what it is. Was it a creature? Was it a board wipe? Is it an artifact? Is it my win condition? My combo kill? You're just gonna have to guess. It's not good, all right? It's not good for you, and it's all great for me. That's all you need to know. The OG unrestricted tutor. No, was this unrestricted at one point? Yeah, I have no idea the history of the restricted list. I do remember the day that Chalice of the Void got restricted. And I believe that was like 10 years ago. But I do remember when that happened, that's for sure. Put flashback on that thing. Jonathan says, love Demonic Tutor. My friends don't have it, so not sure. They've never complained about me playing it. Well, Tutor, I mean, in Commander, it's not a big deal. Because you only got 1. Although you get to play 1 Demonic Tutor, 1 Mystical Tutor, 1 Worldly Tutor. You get a little one of everything here. He's got his textbook. Because the Demonic Tutor is all about knowledge, all right? Likes learning. You learn a thing a day, you're going to be as powerful and as big and tough as strong as Demonic Tutor. Is that right there? And take it into your hand. Yes. Oh, you're talking about, yeah. The ancient scripture. You may search your library for 1 card and take it into your hand. Well, I mean, it's at least they didn't say to draw it or anything like that. You take it in there. Old templating. Gotta love it. Everything is diluted in Commander. Everything you play is 1/4 the power it's supposed to be. That is why it's impossible to get through a Commander player about what's good. Yeah, I know. It's difficult because, you know, you only see cards like once in a blue moon. Demonic Tutor! I don't know how I feel about this. Like, a tutor's a tutor, I guess. It's really strong in combo cards, or combo decks. So I guess it's too powerful. I am not that harsh against the tutors. Like, I do think they're. It's basically how consistent do you want a game? That's basically what they say. A lot of decks can be built without them. So the more tutors you have, the more consistency. The less tutors, the less consistent. I mean, you can build decks around. There are cards that say players can't search their library. You know, skill. If you can't beat tutors, I would say that potentially a skill issue. Dig through time. That is hilarious. So here's a card. Restricted in vintage. But okay. Restricted in vintage. Well, banned in legacy. Banned in modern. 100% legal in Pioneer. What the hell is up with that? Yeah, that has, and the only reason well, honestly, it has like no home or very few homes in Pioneer. And also in any time that you want to play with a Delve card, you're playing with like Treasure Cruise. This card, yeah, Delve being broken. Who would have thought like adding 6 generic mana actually would have made such a big difference? No fetching in Pioneer makes a big difference. It does make a big difference. No fetching. You can still build a graveyard there though. Lord Trevor, good rule of thumb, don't counter the tutor too early. Counter what they search for instead. Well, that's really good unless they get the Storm card. Then you are actually screwed, right? So in that case, you do want to counter the tutor. Also, I mean, there's actually a lot of reasons you want to counter the tutor. You prevent them from getting Threshold. You prevent them from building a graveyard. You prevent them from getting more Storm. There's actually a lot of reasons to counter the tutor. Very context dependent. It's the Duskmourn Prince. Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing. I mean, if I go to the OG one, they all look the same. Here's you want the cons one? Here's the cons one. Unless you have the Storm counter card. Oh, yeah, if you have the Storm counter card, it's not a big deal if you have Flusterstorm. Okay, anyway, did I even explain this card? 8 mana, instant Delve. Look at the top 7 cards of your library. Put 2 of them into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. I think this card is very strong, but I am not of the opinion that it's outright broken. I think between, like, a Graveyard Hate, yeah, like, just Graveyard Hate in general, and I think the card is, like, more than fine. Anyway, you get to play with one. I think more, what's it called? Treasure Cruise is more offending than Dig Through Time. This kinda double DTs mostly. Oh, what the hell are you saying? Cards that help find other restricted cards are good, sometimes too good, and also get restricted. Yes, that's true. So Dig Through Time, it's like just a semi-tutor for the most part. But this is a question of how powerful it is. And you know what? It's not that powerful in Pioneer, so I think Dig Through Time is perfectly fine. It's all fine in the right context. I think there are more powerful cards out there. Usually Dig Through Time gets restricted with like Treasure Cruise. You know, they didn't even give it a chance in Legacy, honestly. They didn't even give it a chance. They're like, okay, we're banning Treasure Cruise, and just for good measure, we're banning Dig Through Time. It doesn't put the cards into the graveyard and lets you become consistent. You mean the Dig Through Time? Treasure Cruise is slightly better than Dig Through Time. Oh, it's much better. It doesn't seem that way, but historically, Treasure Cruise has above and beyond outperformed Dig Through Time by a wide margin. Just because the 3 random cards just somehow make more of a difference than finding 2 very precise cards that you need. Okay, you heard the music. We're gonna take a look at more restricted cards in Magic the Gathering. But we got to thank our sponsor today, FusionGamingOnline.com, my favorite place to buy my Magic the Gathering cards. Magic the Gathering Foundations is coming out, and if you need to get singles or sealed product, you know where to get them from. You get them at FusionGamingOnline.com. How are you going to buy them? You might ask. You might want to buy with Fusion Gaming Online coupon code Nikachu to get 5% off all your purchases. You get a little bit of a deal, and you support the channel. We're also going to thank Mana Traders, the premier place to rent Magic cards online. Now, have you heard of Vintage? You want to be part of the Vintage community? You want to play Vintage yourself? You can do that on Magic Online. They have the format. And instead of being like $50,000 in person, it's like I don't know, $500 or less online. But then if you just have a monthly subscription at Mana Traders, you can you can rent any deck and send it back every single day. Play all the vintage decks you want, including all the formats. And you can support the channel renting using my coupon code Nikachu under QTP for 10% off your first 2 months when renting with Mana Traders. Okay, back to Dig Through Time. Dig Through Time dug its own grave. That's what it was digging for. Okay, next up, we're going to take a look at Flash. Oh, that's a funny card. That's a card, all right. The blue 1 generic instant. Choose a creature card from your hand. Put that creature card into play as though it were just played. Play the creature's casting cost reduced by up to 2. If you cannot, bury the creature. The Flash Hulk card, that's right. I'm going through all the cards alphabetically, one at a time. You can super chat to get through it faster. Flash is way too abusable. No thanks. It's vintage, for crying out. It's vintage. You know, honestly, between Flash and Oath of Druids, which, by the way, Oath of Druids is 100% legal. I don't see the difference between these things. Now, Flash technically, it's an instant kill, whereas Oath of Druids, the game might go on for a little longer, but if you can't do anything about the Oath of Druids, I mean, you're basically dead anyway. I hear you like ETB and LTB triggers. Leave the battlefield triggers. I love that dude flashing in the art. Yeah, flashing someone. You could consider this like a trench coat of some sort. Flash art is like guy taking a selfie with a dragon in it. What the F? And it's a dragon flashing. A flashing dragon. Pabno says, I've heard Treasure Cruise is better for most decks, but Dig Through Time is better for combo. It depends. Dig Through Time in general is better for control. But it can be good for combo. When it comes to combo, they'll take any cards that they can get. A lot of combo decks played with Treasure Cruise. But it's not a bad line of thought. Yeah, you can say Dig Through Time also if you're a combo deck, you might want to lean towards the Dig Through Time to get exactly what you need. If Dig Through Time was common, it would be banned in Pauper for sure. It's true. Probably. The worst selfie out ever. Or maybe it's the greatest selfie. How many selfies do you guys have in front of a dragon? Okay, I will agree. Turn 1 kill. Too powerful. Flash is banned. Why did they ban Protein Hulk? Gitaxian Probe. Zero mana, but pay 2 life to look at somebody's hand and also get to draw a card out of it. That sounds great, doesn't it? Wow, Gitaxian Probe. It is too strong for Legacy. It is too strong for Modern. But I'm actually and it is too strong for Pauper. I'm really surprised that it is banned, though, in Vintage. I guess just knowing their hand and... I mean, it's the same problem with all formats. You look at your opponent's hand. Oh, you can do nothing about my combo. Well, I guess I just combo off. I win. It's like a really safe way to find out if the coast is clear. But is it powerful? Well, not in itself, but combined in a combo deck, it's insane. What is this? Gitaxian Anal Probe? No. It's an alien. The alien's going to take you up to their spaceship. They're going to do experiments on you. A lot of experiments. I'm looking at these too old of these comments. What the hell were they smoking? Believe it or not, Gitaxian Probe was legal in all these formats for more than a decade. I don't know when did they ban Gitaxian Probe? Around late 2016 or early 2017 in Modern, and then I don't remember when they banned it in Legacy. Maybe it was a little bit earlier, maybe a little bit later. But Gitaxian Probe had free reign for such a long time, and no one blinked an eye. No one blinked. It's oh, it's Gitaxian. It's like Thoughtseize. It's like crappier Thoughtseize. Because they look at your hand And they don't even take a card from it, when really it's actually better than Thoughtseize in a way, because you don't have to pay any mana for it. In my opinion, though, I actually think Thoughtseize is almost as good, if not I think it's either equal or slightly worse than Gitaxian Probe, in my opinion. Hence why so many black decks play with Thoughtseize, because it basically does the same thing, except you can take the problem card from them. Also pitches to Force of Will, also very, very broken. Probe means, I hate this argument, to be honest, Ricardo. Okay, Probe means you have 56 cards in your deck. Still watch the hand and triggers a lot of stuff. Broken, or better, in danger. Because, like, if this argument insinuates that everyone should be playing with Street Wraith, or any deck that cares about filling up the graveyard, because this is also a way to play with 56 cards in your deck. So I think the whole 56 card argument, I don't buy it. The soul of Gitaxian Probe is you get to see your opponent's hand without having to tap any mana, and that enables the like turn 2, turn 3 kills. Whereas if I have to play with Peak or Thoughtseize, okay, I see your hand, but I do slow myself down enough that I can't exactly kill you on turn 3, or I won't have 100% perfect information when I go for the kill on turn 3. Sheilan's like, I don't like hand reveals. They make the game easier for the enemies. No more surprises on their turn. Yeah, I like to surprise my opponents too. You got that right. We need more surprise in this game. Ban Thoughtseize. Misstep is the 56 cards in some case, maybe. It's a free, yeah, it's free spell. Free is a good price. It's all about decks playing this card, and then it'll be a mirror match each time. Well, again, not really. Like, you know, for example, every deck, when this card, how do I put this? This card was legal for like a decade, and not everyone played it, right? It's not easy to play Gitaxian Probe. Paying 2 life to look at your hand didn't work for every single deck. It actually worked in very, very few decks, but the few decks that it could work in were amazing. So it's not like every Pauper deck played this card. It's not like every Modern deck or every Legacy deck played this card. Probably in Vintage, I would think this might be the only format where everyone might want to play this card. Maybe the only one. Just get the information. Probe is banned in Legacy, basically for therapy alone. In some case, the 56 card argument is more like a bonus. It's just that the Probe is also amazing in other ways. Oh yeah, the soul of the card is what makes no one plays this to. If it were true that the 56 cards were so important, then everyone would have played Probe. But actually, just a very small percentage of the field played Probe. And it just so happened the people who did play Probe, they had a really huge, massive boost to their win rate. Mental Misstep, join the chat. Anyway, card is, yeah, I'll say it's ban worthy. I'll say it's definitely worthy of being restricted in Vintage. Moving on. Golgari, Grave Troll. I'm actually surprised. Honestly, no cap. I'm surprised that this is restricted. Especially since, like, there is a lot of graveyard hate. I mean, from my perspective, you either have your graveyard hate or you don't. And if you don't, you're dead. If you do, they're dead. Anyway, so it's 5. The card doesn't matter. The only thing that matters on this card is Dredge 6. You can like basically black out everything else. None of the text matters. It's just a random card you put in the graveyard, and then all of a sudden you can start dredging for 6 and get through your entire deck. If anyone has seen Dredge in Vintage, they literally can get through their deck in 2 turns. Maybe sometimes 1. I've seen like they just go through tons and tons of their entire archetype. Oh, that makes me wonder. Maybe Gitaxian Probe is partially banned because of how it interacts with Dredge. Because you can like dredge a few more times with a Gitaxian Probe. I'm not sure. Do vintage decks play with... Sorry, do vintage Dredge decks play with Gitaxian Probe? Dredge is such a unique mechanic. There are so many ways to make good decks with this mechanic. No, there isn't. There's literally one way to make a good deck with it, and that is Dredge. I have never seen a non like Dredge. How do I put it? There's like the Dredge archetype that is trying to blast you into like the last century. And then there's like the pre-constructed deck Dredge, which like tries to fill your graveyard a little bit to like get some value, and then you get to 5 mana and you can cast your Golgari Grave Troll. That doesn't exist. Never happened. Bazaar is basically a card that is the soul of the format. Yes, very weirdly, Bazaar of Baghdad. Bazaar, not restricted, perfectly legal. 4 of. And that is the soul of the Dredge deck. And like and also, if I recall correctly, I think I want to say Dredge players have lands that can deal with your like Strip Mine and Wasteland to deal with their Bazaar. Here's Nikachu trying to talk to Commander players about what's good. Good luck. Oh no, everyone understands. Grave Troll is a free draw 6 in Dredge. Bazaar of Bag. Oh yeah, you know what? Actually, thanks for letting me know about that. I didn't consider that. How in Commander, you are limited by how many Dredge cards you have. So therefore, you cannot play like the quintessential, absolute busted Dredge archetype like you do in Modern, Legacy, and Vintage. Whereas in Commander, you have like access to 1 Golgari Grave Troll, 1 Stinkweed Imp. Basically, you get the 6 Dredger, the 5 Dredger, the 4 Dredger, the 3 Dredger, and you do rely on value. You have to go that value route. Would be nice to play fair in a low-level environment. It would be nice, wouldn't it? I always thought that Golgari Grave Troll looked like a well-designed card, except the last line. Yeah, the last line sort of ruins it, doesn't it? Bazaar and Workshop is unrestricted for the same reason Sol Ring isn't banned in Commander. I guess so. You could be yeah, you're completely right about that. Kalanteras. Great call. I've heard a lot of talk about like banning those cards, but I guess they're just never going to do it because that just goes against the spirit of the format. Just like how they restricted Chalice of the Void goes against the spirit. Why is Golgari mono green? I don't know. I have no idea. Dredge was a green mechanic. It was a Golgari mechanic, hence Golgari. Oh yeah, you're right. Why is it mono green? It should be Golgari. Should be 2 colors. So anyway, Golgari Grave Troll. I actually think you might call me crazy. I actually don't think is that powerful for Vintage. I think you either have the graveyard hate for this deck or you don't. I mean, they get to play with 1, and that's all they basically need. They get 1, and then they're going to go off like they have 4. Anyway, I'm not a vintage expert. I don't know if I'm killing the format by having 4 copies of this thing, but of all the restricted cards, I would think this is the least, how do I put it? The least offending. Gosh! This is such a weird card. It looks bad. You know, if you showed 15-year-old Nikachu, gosh. 5 mana, draw 2 cards, but I may return 2 islands back to my hand instead of paying Gush's mana cost, I would have said this card is absolute garbage. It's trash. There's no way this card was any good. Most graveyard hate is Leyline anyway. Well, actually, getting back to, because I did have to study a little bit of the Vintage metagame once. You either have Leyline of the Void, but also Tabernacle of Pendrell Vale is pretty good versus Dredge decks because they don't have any mana or they have very little mana, I should say. I can't remember if they have no mana or very little mana, but like basically their deck is cold to relatively cold to a Tabernacle. I want to say they have Strip Mine just to beat your Tabernacle if you're playing it. That's the only mana they have access to. Calantera says Gush has been unbanned and rebanned more than any other card, I think. That's cool. They like it. They like that. I guess it's a fun card to them. Anyway, it looks like garbage. I do understand though, in a tempo deck with using very low resources, this card is great. Float the mana, especially if you have no land drop for the turn. Float 2 mana, Gush, replay a land for the turn. It's not even like you lost very much. Basically got your 3 lands anyway. Not much to say about Gush. If you can make the landfall again, it will be useful. Vintage Dredge players play Guy's Cradle now. Do they? That's insane. I haven't played Vintage for a year, but that sounds crazy. What do they use Cradle for? To hard cast the Golgari Grave Troll in their hand? Gush / Fast Bond is so fun. Oh yeah, so you can like replay the cards over again. Yeah, that's some good tech there. Narcomoeba, Dread Return Thassa's Oracle. That's also a route to victory. Christopher B, which of these do you most want a Magus Restraint of? A fish person exclusive variant? I have no idea. There's no such thing as a Magus of the Gush. Or is there? Can I think of like, Magus of the Gush? You may return 2 islands you control to your owner's hand instead of paying Gush's mana cost. And the thing is like, play and get like a 3/3 Merfolk or something. That's possible. Magus of the Gush. Magus of the Gus. Cradle Pumps Basking Rootwalla. Oh my god, but you can only get 1 activation. I guess you can, you can hard cast the cards. But that's not the point of Dredge, is it? I mean, I can see they could get the mana pretty easily. Magus of the Grave Troll. No! 2/2 Dredge 6, yeah. And none of that other text, just to balance it out. The ladies used to call me the Magus of the Gush. Oh my god. Where are you going? Where are you going with that? There is a morph creature that can gush on flop. Forgot the name. Never heard of it, to be honest. Magus of the Raging Rivers. Okay, I will agree. Gush too strong. It's like, sort of like Ancestral Recall, except for 0 mana. It's crazy. It used to be legal in Pauper. I sort of regret not getting into Pauper like a decade ago, where you could play with all the fun cards. You could play with Gush, Gitaxian Probe. You could play with all these insane cards in Pauper. Okay, next up we're going to Imperial Seal. Imperial Seal is a black... Oh no, we need the OG. There we go. Black sorcery. Search your library for any 1 card, shuffle your library, and put that card on top of it. You lose 2 life. I mean, it's a tutor. A tutor's a tutor. It's like crappier demonic tutor. Costs less, but you're gonna lose life, and you do have to wait until next turn, or you have to draw it with Gitaxian Probe or something. You have to set it up to draw it at the same time. You Vampiric Tutor at home. That's right. You have to do it at sorcery speed. Maybe they're gonna make you shuffle your deck. Although I don't think Field of Ruin is all that popular. There is the 1 card that should be... There is the 1 card that should be Legacy legal. No! I think consistent... So I'm from a world where I think consistency is bad in the 4X formats. I would be fine with tutors so long as everything's a 1 of. Like in Commander, I don't feel that bad about the tutors, but in like 4X formats, just having 4 of a card is insanely consistent. Like, I don't think people realize how consistent having 4X of a card is in their deck. I think the math goes like by turn 3 or 4, you're 50%. There's a 50% chance of you finding the card that you have 4 copies of in your deck. Something that, or maybe it's in your hand. I can't remember. But it's really, really... like, having 4X of a card in your deck is really consistent. And then having, like, a 5th copy, this is just insane. Like, would you just want to guarantee to have the exact same game over and over and over again? Used to be the most expensive card that wasn't on the reserve list. Oh, yeah, that can happen for 2... That couldn't keep going for forever. Tutor into Draco before Eureka trigger. Basically grabs all your 1-ofs, ruining the spirit of the restrictions. Yeah, I mean... Well, yeah, it ruins the spirit of this restriction. The cards are just good by themselves. You know? You can't grab restricted cards in Legacy. I didn't. I just chose random Japan name. What? Oh, I'm sorry. It must be in response to something else. Versus the commander player, 4x plus 60 cards instead of 99. What do you mean plus 60 cards? You mean, yeah, well, yeah, versus the commander. So in commander, yeah, you have 1x of every card. So the tutors are like more balanced. Whereas in a 60 card deck, you have 4x of a card. Those cards happen you see those cards insanely often. Looks like 50% chance of getting a 4 of in the first 10 cards if I did the math correctly. Hopefully you did. Hopefully you did. Nikachu with that hypergeometric calculation superpower. Yeah, I have it. I wouldn't say I have it hotkeyed, but it is one of my, what do you call it? It's in my hyperlinks whatever. Bookmarks. That's what I was thinking of. It's in my bookmark. I got a bookmark to that thing. Gotta love those hypergeometric calculators. Okay, Imperial Seal, too strong. In my opinion, too strong. Okay, next up, we've got Imperial Seal. Oh, Karn. Okay, I don't know why. I don't exactly know why this is restricted. I could take a guess. The 4-mana Karn. We have a lot of Karns. Let's see the original. The 4-mana Planeswalker with the static of ability of activated abilities of artifacts your opponents control can't be activated. I'm surprised they restrict this, but Null Rod, is Null Rod restricted? I can't remember if Null Rod is restricted. Null Rod is not restricted. How is this restricted but not Null Rod? Karn makes mud decks too consistent. Also screws with people's artifacts. If you go Black Lotus, land Karn the Great Creator, and pass, well, that sucks for them. Now their Lotus Petals are offline. Their Black Lotus, the Moxen, everything that they spent thousands of dollars on. Yeah, no Mox, no Moxies for you. Well, this Mycosynth Lattice is more of a problem in Modern. I don't know if it's... Honestly, I don't think Mycosynth Lattice is that big of a deal in Vintage. There's a lot worse ways of losing in Vintage. Isn't Null not one-sided? It's not. I guess that's how they balance it. But, you know, if I go Black Lotus, or even get to use my Moxen once and then play Null Rod, I think I win out on the deal. Maybe not. Maybe not. This card combined with Mycosynth Lattice, the Lattice turns everything into an artifact. Yeah. But that's like that in every format. I mean, I would have to go back to see, like, how did they... Okay, I'm going to quickly see. Karn the Great Creator, Vintage, Restricted. I would guarantee... Restricted in Vintage... I'm on this page. Where's the news? When they restricted this thing. Well, there's a lot of comments on Reddit saying because of the like, you know, Mana Crypt, Soul Ring, Moxen, Black Lotus, but I can't guarantee that. This isn't that old of a card. I mean, for crying out loud, it came out like 5 years ago. Anyway, they banned Leyline and Best of One in Arena. They did do that, didn't they? For CMC, it might be a little easy. Oh, in Vintage? Oh, it's no problem. That's a breeze. 4 mana, turn 1. Huh. Hold my beer. They can do whatever they want in Vintage. The Moralonomicon. Okay, too fast to get it out. Shuts down all Moxen and Lotus and fetches Liquid Metal Coating / Lattice. Makes the coin flip more important to the usual combo decks. Okay, I can buy that. I do know that if you get this out, especially on turn 1, you will absolutely shaft the other player. And they'll be super far down on mana. Getting hit with Null Rod when you have a handful of artifacts and depended on them doesn't feel good. You feel the sting. Okay, now, that being said, is it too powerful? No! I think this card is definitely not that powerful. The card is really good, but it's been proven in both Modern and Legacy that it's like, it's fine. It's fine. We can live with it. The only reason this card is like more dangerous in this format is because of the heavy artifact mana. But in the grand scheme of things, it is not the most it's not Black Lotus broken, okay? It's not Black Lotus or Channel broken. It's a good card. I'm not gonna say anything bad about Karn the Great Creator, all right? I'm not gonna downplay you. You're a good card. You see play in every format, but not the most broken thing in the world. Therefore, I don't think it's the most broken thing in Vintage. Ooh, Library of Alexandria. Why? Why? I don't understand this one. I don't know why it's even banned in Commander. Land. It just taps for a colorless, and if you have 7 cards in hand, if you have exactly 7 cards in hand, you draw a card. I really have not a clue. I am honestly of the opinion that this is one of the most overrated cards on like every banned list. People just don't, either I don't understand, or people are overrating, or I'm either underrating or people are overrating how good a card is, drawing a card for 1 mana is very early on in the game. Would barely see Legacy play. I'm sure it would see some Legacy play. 8 card opening hand. Yeah, it's an 8 card opening hand, but well, first off, if you have an 8 card opening hand, you have to discard to hand size unless you can play some free spells off of it. But on top of that, like, you didn't do anything turn 1. Like, I don't see a world where we can just pass the turn and do absolutely nothing on turn 1. I understand, you know, there's Delver decks out there, even in Legacy, that they go like Brainstorm or Ponder turn 1 to set up their future turns because they don't have any gas in hand. But I don't think is that busted. I'm really surprised that this is restricted. I wonder what the world looked like in Vintage when you could play with 4 of them. Arabian Nights, the OG Universes Beyond. That's true. You lose all the turn 1 tempo, though. What a joke. That is exactly what I'm trying to say. That's where I look. That's the way I look at it. LOA. I've seen this card played in Vintage before. It accelerates turns very quickly. A 7-card threshold is pretty easy to have. No, I understand that. Is it really the most broken thing that can happen in Vintage? Is it really that crazy? You're not influencing the board at all. Maybe the biggest danger is that you can draw into more, more 0 drops to mitigate you discarding a hand size. I guess that's probably how it's going. Whereas in Legacy, there's less 0 drops to take advantage of. In Vintage, there's more 0 drops to take advantage of. So if I, for example, take a turn off to play this as my land drop, draw an extra card, it could be a Black Lotus, could be a Lotus Petal. And those cards can accelerate me into other plays on the same turn. Not by a long shot. Will we ever do another real cards that look like AI generated stream? No, probably not, because there's probably not that many. Maybe we should do like Universes Beyond cards that aren't Universes Beyond. That's actually a show. That's a cool show, actually. Universes Beyond, that's not. Yeah, that's hilarious. I like that idea. Yeah, it's already written down. Early Karn has more use in Vintage than meets the eye. You just need to exile your Black Lotus and becomes a better Lurrus. True story. Yeah, so it's all Arabian Nights around here. Maybe this is good in Dredge, but I don't see how this beats Bazaar and stuff. No, it's not going to beat Bazaar and stuff. I don't see it either. Anyway, I don't think it's powerful. I don't think Library of Alexandria is powerful. You might say I'm crazy, and I don't blame you. Maybe I am crazy. I would like to see this card. I would really like to see this card unbanned in Commander, although that would drive the price up to like 10 grand or something. It'd become the most expensive uncommon in history. Oh, LOA is an Library of Alexandria. That's what it means. LOA means list of adhesions. No. You need to do a power 9 of land. Well, this won't make it. I don't think this card is. It's a great card, but I just don't see. I don't see stuff like this as powerful. I don't mind it being restricted, although I don't even know what it would do as like in 4-ofs. Demonic Tutor is Universes Beyond. Originally, it refers to the Faustian bargain in Gothema's drama, as does Chains of Mephistopheles. There we go. The show is writing itself. Anyway, so I say Library of Alexandria. Not powerful. Print it. You think I'm crazy? You let me know in the comment section below. All right. That's it for today. That's it for part 1. We'll do more of these in the future. We're going to get through that whole entire restricted list. If you want to be part of the show, you got to be here 3 p.m. Central Standard Time. Thanks everyone who supports the show. If you're a patron on Patreon, a member on YouTube, or you super chat to be part of the show, or even super chat so other people are part of the show. And thank you so much everyone for being here. Contributing your commentary. People like Nolan, Callan Terras, Toilet Duck, Old Boy Trevor. We got Pabno, Nolan, The Jaded, Mr. Fellblood. We got John. We got Jess. Who else do we have here? We have this person. Love seeing them every single day. Benjamin Berkeley, Dr. Sean. When Vintage was almost fair, circa 2005, Library was pretty busted. It was pretty easy to draw back up to 7 and have it active. I want to see that world come back. Lord Magicus, Paul Rogg, Pedgeman, the Big Squig, Steve Cooper. Even Pablo, thanks so much for his super chat. Mr. Ericol for Genka, Sheelan, TJL. Who else do we have here? Nightmare Incarnation, Julio. Anyway, thank you very much for everyone for being here. And as usual, my coffee crew, keep bringing them coffees, and we'll keep bringing up the magic. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you at the next cup.